Hello and welcome back to Frogboy X1 Gaming. I'm Andrew, and today we are 4 weeks into, well, a month, 4 months, a whole month now with the Radeon RX 7600 XT. Now I bought this card specifically so that I could test the lower end GPUs on the AMD platform. To kind of help people that would want to see that, and I've gotten a lot of pushback over buying this card. People telling me that it's a waste of money. I should have just bought the 70 or the 6700 XT. It's the same price. Like, I get all that. Like, I understand that. Like, my whole point with the 7600 XT was to test the new generation of AMD GPUs. And I've said this a few times, like I really have no desire to buy old hardware, and I feel like people are just not listening to what I'm saying when I say that. Like, I have no desire to buy more power for older hardware. I want to test the new hardware going forward, and that's why I decided to go ahead and pick up the 7600 XT. I mean, you got Daniel Owens, he's buying one now too, so I mean, maybe you guys should go over there and tell him he's being stupid with his money and that he shouldn't buy that card, so that he can show people, what these cards can actually do. Now, I'll tell you, in my experience with this card so far, the experience that I've played with this card, from older games to newer games to games that are just coming out, I find this to be a very decent experience overall. Like, I feel like the 7600 XT right now is in a lot of cases is being misrepresented as something due to the price. You know what I mean? And I don't necessarily think I paid $349.99 for my card. I don't necessarily think that was a bad price. I feel like I paid for longevity. I feel like if you paid $399 for a 349 or 329. I that's the standard price for like the two fan model. If you're just getting like the standard edition of the 7600 XT, it's not going to have as nice of a cooler. It's not going to have any of that kind of stuff. But this is the XFX version of the of the 7600 XT, and this does have two 8-pin power supply right there. It's actually a pretty solid built card. Like, I like the way this card is built. I mean, this card right here is a better quality overall build than the MSI 4070 that I had. This card is significantly better built than that GPU right there. And I feel like when people on the internet are telling you what you should buy over what you potentially need or want, or maybe you don't care about, like, maybe you just don't care. Maybe you're like me. Maybe you only want to buy new stuff forward, and when you've got so many people like beating you over the head telling you that, like, no man, that's a stupid decision, you're going to get more. I guarantee this card here probably has better ray tracing performance than that 6700 XT. I mean, with that card, you're probably pretty close to not being able to do decent ray tracing, whereas this one, you're probably going to be able to do it a little bit better. And I know that, I mean, me personally, I don't recommend ray tracing at this stage anyways. I think maybe hopefully next generation for both AMD and Nvidia, I think it'll be more of a feature that even, like your 5060 is going to be able to have. Your other cards are going to be able to do better at it, because, to believe it or not, this card here actually does a decent job at being able to pump out some ray tracing, especially at like 1080p, using upscaling, stuff like that. And there are enough features out there and software now to make this card really shine and be able to do more with it than you would actually ever expect, especially from the way people talk about AMD. You'd be like thinking that this card was just stupid, like it was pointless. And so when I bought this card a month ago and I started testing it, playing some of those older games that even that 3080 was giving me, struggles with, because of VRAM and stuff. Like, those problems are completely gone. This is one monolithic die. This does not have the chiplet design like the other cards do, like the 7800 XT or the 7900 XT or XTX. This is a monolithic die. And this thing is more powerful than your PlayStation 5 or your Xbox Series X, and it really does. It really does perform and look better. Like, you'll be able to put this in there and get a PC and put this in there, and you'll easily be able to match and exceed what you can get with a PlayStation 5 or an Xbox Series X. So I don't look at this card as being completely useless. I do look at this card as being more of like a somebody's on the fence type deal. Like, I don't know if I want to get into PC, and like, I get that. Like, I 100% get that. Like, right now, there's a lot of people that are really considering and talking about getting into PC gaming. I see it all the time, and people are just unsure because there's so much of that out there. You talk about, yeah, man, the 7600 XT, and automatically, immediately, you get bashed over the head by all these people in the PC community telling you what to do, knowing that they wouldn't be doing this themselves. And it's, well, I can't say they wouldn't do that themselves. I can't say that they would choose a 6700. They wouldn't choose they would choose a 6700 XT over this. Some of them might. And that's fine. Do whatever they want to do with their money and whatever they want to do. But I guarantee that if they did that, they would not be happy with that experience. They would instantly be looking to move forward. I mean, that would be the stopgap for them. That is the potential, and that's what I think of when they tell me to do something like that. I'm like, okay, well, here's the thing. I've already got a 7900 XT, so I'm not buying this card for the power. I'm buying this card simply to be able to show people what it can do and help build the channel and build the community, from the ground up. And bring more people in so that we can figure these things out together as a community, and not have all the confusion flying around us all the time. And I know that I'm guilty of bringing confusion to the PC space as well. Like, I get that. I 100% understand that, and that's something that we're really trying to move away from, and we're really trying to look at things from the hardware that I have on hand and from the hardware that I buy, so that we can make educated decisions on how that's going to affect our gaming experience. Because at the end of the day, the gaming experience is the only thing that matters. I don't care about the power. I don't care about the features. I don't care about all the stupid freaking marketing nonsense out there. I want to get it in my hands and see how this game, or how this particular product is going to perform. I want to see how this card is going to perform. I want to see what it's going to do for the channel and stuff. So when I buy a product like the 7600 XT and I test it and I use it, that gives me more knowledge, from a lower end point of view. That gives me a better understanding of what my expectations should be throughout the product stack. Now, when I look at the 7600 XT and I look at 1080p performance versus 1440p performance versus 4K performance, because obviously if your Xbox Series X and PS5 can hit 4K at 12 teraflops of RDNA 2 power, there's no reason on earth why an RDNA 3 GPU shouldn't be able to do that, because it has more cores, it has more power. Obviously, it's got a higher power limit. This card here has pretty much the power limit of a PS5 or an Xbox Series X all by itself. So yeah, you should be able to push this a little bit harder and be able to hit and exceed what like PS5 and Series X can do. Now, I'll say that this card, performance-wise, Very, 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 very decent at 1440p. Like it does an incredible job at 1440p on almost everything I've thrown at it. There are some heavy games out there that really do um, give this card a run for its money and put it back in the 1080p bracket, but that's fine because that's where this card is designed to be. But that doesn't mean you cannot go into certain games and push this thing to 4K. That VRAM buffer actually gives you a pretty decent amount of that. And one of the things that I've really been testing, and it's because of that, is the 128-bit bus that this card has. Now we've heard a lot about, oh, your card needs this, your card needs that to be able to hit 4K, and man, these are things that I've had to test myself because it just gets so noisy. It gets so noisy, man, and I'm trying to cut through the noise and figure this stuff out on my own. Well, here's the deal. Here's the absolute freaking deal when it comes to AMD or any GPU in for that matter. We went from and if you look back at like gaming as a whole, we went from systems that didn't have, I mean, like, dude, like, I think I think it was probably a 128-bit bus on like your PS5 and your Xboxes. Maybe it was lower like on your PS3s and stuff like that. Like, I don't even think our game engines have really significantly surpassed 128-bit bus just yet. I mean, if you look, I mean, they look like they might be getting closer to maybe 256-bit bus. But let's be real. Let's be 100% honest, man. Like, I don't think our games have progressed really, really far past 128-bit bus yet. So I still think we're more than in the realm of this here potentially being a 4K of a 4K card, at least in terms of what the game engines now are pushing and what the and how that's all panning out right now. I still think this is at least a viable card for being able to do like medium settings at 4K or upscaled 4K or even, you know, on some of them harder cards, you know, doing like a low settings at 4K and still being able to easily match what the PS4 and the PS5 can do. There's even some games that I was running Suicide Squad at 4K, ultra settings at 40 frames a second at native 4K with this card. And that had me thinking, I'm like, okay, so if a 7600 XT can run this game at 4K at 40 frames a second and still be able to do like 60 if I turn on upscaling and all of that stuff, that there in my mind, coming from a console mindset and being a console gamer for as long as I have, that in my mind puts this in a category to where, look, I don't think this card is really as bad as the PC space would have you believe. It's almost like these guys want you just blowing your money on the highest end stuff, and stuff like this for people that can afford it. It's almost like they're telling you, quit being poor, buy what we tell you to buy, and don't question us. We said 7600 XT is trash, so don't buy it. Buy what we told you to buy so that you can be miserable like the rest of us. And that's the way I feel. That's honestly the way I feel. When I put this card in, like, I don't feel like I'm any less of a gamer. I don't feel like I'm getting any less of an experience. And I don't feel like it's giving me a terrible experience. But I do understand that, yes, there's going to be limitations. From comparing this to like the 7800 XT, there's a noticeable leap in power and like just not necessarily stability, because this card is pretty stable as well. Even playing around with it and doing like those extreme testings and seeing how it runs, this card here still performs pretty well and it's pretty stable. In some cases, I think because of the monolithic die, it might be a little bit more stable in certain types of experiences, but overall, like the stability that you get from a 7600 XT versus like a 7900 XT or even the 7800 XT, this is the first generation of GPUs that I've actually bought that I've noticed a big enough difference going from step to step to step. Now, I do think that the 7800 XT, honestly, is probably the best bang for your buck when it comes to PC gaming. That's where I plan to stay, is right around the mid range. I do want enough power to be able to push newer games. I do think that there is going to come a time very, very, very soon, within the next year or so, maybe next 2 years, with the new games coming out, that maybe the 7600 XT is no longer a viable option for trying to run games at 4K, and being more suited for like 1440p, 1080p gaming. I do think that this card is going to, as game engines evolve and as games come out, newer games running on the Unreal Engine 5. Actually, this card seems to be doing very well on Unreal Engine 5, especially, because it's got the VRAM buffer. It's got, it's got everything it needs to give you a playable experience. And I think that you would potentially be putting yourself in an interesting position to think that like buying an older card would better suit your needs in this day and age. This card has the VRAM buffer. This card has everything that you could potentially need, because if you look at some of these games, take Resident Evil 4 for instance, the remake. They've got a setting in there for just textures that requires 8 gigs of VRAM to run the max textures. When you're using a 7600 XT, you can easily use the highest quality settings on that game and still get a very decent playable frame rate at 1080p, at 1440p, and even at 4K. You can be running that game at a playable frame rate with this GPU right here, and still have, a little bit of extra VRAM to have there. Now, there's another thing that I've been testing, all of this time, and really looking at, because it is true, when you are using an AMD GPU versus an Nvidia GPU, you will technically usually be using more VRAM on your AMD set, and it doesn't seem like not anybody can seem to answer that question. But I've noticed that when you're using more VRAM on your AMD card, your experience is smoother. And that's been in my testing across all of the Nvidia cards that I've had and all of the AMD cards that I've had. It's in those certain games that were really struggling on a 3080, and still, not exactly, they did run better on a 4070, obviously, but those games actually just tend to perform just a little bit better, or a little more stable, in my opinion, than what I was feeling on any of them in Nvidia GPUs. Like, I'm not saying Nvidia's bad. We're past that. We're not even worried about that kind of nonsense anymore. This is just about fact finding and figuring out how to show people that AMD is definitely worth your time and your money. And honestly, guys, if I wasn't so pig-headed, I would have just been like, I'm just going to accept whatever I can get with Nvidia and this and that, and pretty soon find myself buying the top end cards because that was all that was going to suit my needs, and then always finding myself not being satisfied a little bit later down the road. Whereas with AMD, like, I came into it with low expectations, so now I'm able to like readjust my headspace, bring myself back down to earth where I should have been in the first place, and really start to delve into PC gaming and really learn and put things together myself and see, like, okay, this is the experience. This is what I can expect to have. This is, and doing this science myself, it really does help open my eyes and really teach me, how to get the best experience for the lowest amount of money that I can. Because let's face it, if you're me, and you're running a YouTube channel, or you're me and you just like new technology, you're pretty much in a position, or being primed, or you're primed to already, be in the mindset that, yeah, you're going to probably upgrade every generation. You're probably going to want to see the new things. You're probably going to want to do that. And with AMD, I feel like that's a little bit more, that makes more sense to me AMD wise than it ever would Nvidia wise. Like, I mean, when I went from 3080 like I was kind of mad. Like, and I know everybody told me, yeah, don't do that. You should have bought a 3090 so I could be in the same spot that I would have been with that. You know, actually, I probably would still be fairly happy with the 3090. To be completely honest with you, obviously that card would still be pushing, you know, what my 7900 XT does, and I'm really satisfied with that. I'm actually very satisfied with the 7800 XT, because that card there gives me enough to enjoy and experience the games I want to experience without having any kind of artificial limitations like lack of VRAM to be able to get that done. And that's good. I actually use the 7800 XT probably the most out of my three cards. That is probably my favorite card. And I really do like it. I really do appreciate being able to get in there and play a lot of games on it. With the 7600 XT, I don't mind playing on this card either, to be completely honest with you. And I don't mind playing on my 7900 XT either. I mean, obviously that card's just like, oh boy, it's good. It it gives me a really good experience, and I'm just like, yeah, I mean, I love this card, but I play on a 1440p monitor most of the time, so normally I find myself at a bottleneck when I'm playing 1440p. And it really does give me the ability to transcend 1440p, go to 4K, even 6K, and then down sample back down. And then I got people telling me I'm stupid for that, because why would you want to have only a 60 frames per second experience? And it's like, dude, because then I get to have like amazing graphics and a playable experience. And some people just can't seem to understand that. Like the PC race is so weird sometimes, man. People are just like, yeah, you gotta have max frame rates, and I'm like, okay, I get that for certain types of games, you know, like for a racing game or a highly competitive games. Yeah, you definitely want higher FPS. But for a single player movie driven story open world type of game, 60 FPS is more than sufficient. It feels incredible. With those games, I think that you would want visual quality over really high frame rate, and I play a lot of that kind of stuff. That's mainly what I play, a lot of that kind of stuff. When it gets to like RTS games on any of these cards, man, these things knock those right out of the park. Like solid performance across the board. You turn them on, you play them at max settings, and they just look incredible. I'm like, you could probably play like RTS type games at like 20 frames per second, and they still probably wouldn't be terrible. I know that that's sacrilege and nobody wants to listen to that, but yeah, like there's a lot of experiences on these on a PC that I think that as gamers and as, you know, tech enthusiasts, we really do go out of our way to like chase new tech, and we never, like, I don't even, like I said, with this 128-bit bus, I don't even think we're at a point where a lot of games are going above 128-bit bus, even at 4K. I just don't think that there's, I just don't think we're there yet. I feel like we are closer to, I feel like we're barely starting to get close to maybe the 192-bit bus, maybe the 256, and I know that had given me a lot of confusion too, my friends, because I was like, oh man, my 3080 is a 320-bit bus. Why would I go down to a 4070 that's only a 192-bit bus? Like, I get it, bro. Like, this stuff is so dumb and so confusing, and I don't think there's so many armchair tech enthusiasts out there right now that it just gets confusing. Like, yes, you can find solid PC content on YouTube and stuff, but it is so buried behind so much flip-flop nonsense that everybody just regurgitates and runs with, and they're like, yeah, man, this is fact. And no, I don't think it is fact. I think it is marketing. I think it is, hype. I think it's getting people all worked up so that they're out there spending lots of money or always in doubt with what they have. And to tell you the truth, man, as long as you can play your games and still be able to get your visuals and your performance and all of that stuff to line up with your expectations and give you a good experience, I don't really necessarily see a need to be running out there and like upgrading all the time. But I do think that 16 gigs, I do think still, and like I've got enough testing and enough of my own real world experience now that 16 gigabytes for me is the bare minimum. Period. Like, it's the bare minimum. I know there's a 7700 XT that's got more power, but it's got 12 gigs of VRAM. I absolutely will not buy that card. I bought that 4070. I tested that. I saw what that card was doing, and I was like, okay, yeah, this is not a good card for longevity. This just doesn't work. This is a mismatched. This is broken in some ways. This is going to have you making sacrifices a lot quicker than any of the 16 gigabyte cards. This is a stupid product. This product doesn't make any sense, and it's way overpriced. And that was the feeling I got from the 4070. That's why I just got rid of it, so that we could get it into a system and get somebody else experiencing that, so they can get the most out of that. Because people are like that. There are so many people out there right now, because there's so much misinformation in the PC space, that they would much rather go out and buy Nvidia just because of the name and not even think about or worry about the consequences until it's too late. And then you get a bunch of guys that buy Nvidia all the time over on Reddit, scared to buy the next Nvidia GPU because they don't know. They're unsure. Their experience has led them to a space where they just don't know, but they know they can't buy AMD because AMD is trash. AMD has bad drivers. AMD just doesn't work. It's got AMD dip. It's got blah blah blah. There's so much nonsense about AMD out there that these guys are so trapped in Nvidia, and that sucks. That sucks. So, if you guys like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll be making some more of these, and yeah, dude, we'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much for watching.